Hey there Internet, I'm Heather May and that means it's time for a new Nerdy Bits. Today we're going to be talking about carrying capacity, and I'm not talking about the amount of weight that an elevator can withstand, I'm talking about a concept that's from the field of biology, specifically ecology. In ecology, carrying capacity is the amount of individuals of a particular species in a given environment living for long periods of time without having any negative impacts upon that environment or the population itself. Carrying capacity is determined by limiting factors. Now, a limiting factor is something within the environment that controls the growth of a population. Some examples of limiting factors would be things like the amount of food available, water or shelter, or how often a predator catches prey. So let's say we have a patch of woods. In that patch of woods, the carrying capacity for squirrels is 100. Provided that the population stay at 100 individuals or less, there should be no negative impact to the environment or the squirrels themselves. If the population hits over 100, however, there's a problem. Resources start to become scarce. There's not enough food and water to go around, there's not enough shelter for everyone, and eventually the population will collapse. And it can only get back to a healthy population number once the environment has had time to recover. That doesn't happen with all populations though. Some will actually stabilize once they hit their max carrying capacity by way of decreasing birth rates. Some populations soar right past the max carrying capacity line, only to collapse and then eventually build themselves back up again and pass that line, and just repeat the pattern. These patterns are known as boom and bust cycles, and they're so reliable that some can actually be observed every few years. The most well-known example of this would be snowshoe hares and lynx. When the hare population booms, the lynx population follows suit, as there is now an overabundance of food. When the hare population busts, so does the lynx population, because now there is not enough food to go around. If the predator population is higher than the prey population, you can bet it will eventually decrease, unless of course there's ample supply of another prey item. In regards to us, carrying capacity is pretty difficult to determine. This would be because there are a couple of different things that simply aren't observed within animal populations. The first one being something that differs from culture to culture. That is the rate of consumption. The States, for instance, has a very high level of consumption. Working in restaurants, I've seen so many people who have ordered a huge meal only to take 4 bites and then refuse to take it home and the food gets trashed. That pisses me off. Technology is the other difference. Without things like irrigation canals, large patches of land would not be able to be used for crops. These problems actually brought about a formula known as the IPAT equation. This equation uses multiple factors to figure out the kind of impact that humans have on their environment. I stands for impact, P stands for the size of a population, A stands for affluence or rate of consumption, and T stands for technology, which describes the way in which resources are obtained and made useful. This equation was developed in the 1970s and is usually accredited to a man by the name of Paul Ehrlich. This equation does have its limitations though. You can't just double the impact by doubling the population. Different nations would need to focus on different parts of the equation to lower their impact on the environment. Places like the United States would be able to lower their impact by lowering their rate of consumption, whereas an area that is not industrialized yet would focus more on increasing their technology to make things more efficient. This equation isn't just used for calculating human carrying capacity. It's also been used for years to study CO2 levels. That was your nerdy bit for the day. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. Please like and subscribe. And if it wasn't anything new to you, well, subscribe anyway. I'll have something new next week. My name's Heather May. Bye, Internet.